Eva shifted onto her elbow, one pale breast barely peeking out from beneath the blue sheets. Abraham was propped up on a stack of squished pillows, his legs crossed at the shins. His ankles and feet stuck comically out from the covers. His legs were fairly hairy, but years of wearing tight, short socks had killed the follicles around his ankles, and they were bare of hair. He was 6'3" and most early mornings he woke in chill, his feet sticking out. Abraham was accustomed to stretching beyond the footboard. His bedroom was clean and sparse, lit at that moment only by the remnants of early evening sunlight poking through the cheap vertical blinds. A bed on dark wood slats, navy sheets, and a plaid cover. An armoire, a single pedestal night table with a digital clock. A hamper in one corner, socks and neckties streaming over the sides. A walk-in closet, door ajar. Abraham's living room was much more filled in, decorated, proper. That's because he allowed his sisters to design the rest of the apartment. He let them, giggling, into his place, carrying bags from Pier 1. They insisted he get the heck out, and he made them promise it wouldn't be too girlish, and they would leave the bedroom alone. Eva and Abraham had made their way toward his bedroom stealthily after a lengthy make-out session in his living room, him leading her down the hall by hand. There, he reached a climax rather quickly. Eva didn't orgasm easily with others. She fared much better at her own hand. She never volunteered this to her partners, however. She let them make their valiant efforts, and she wouldn't fake it when she failed to come. She just smiled serenely, as though to assure them that she knew they'd done their darndest. The click of the clock was the only sound inside the room after. The sun continued to set, the light inside the bedroom to change, to filter the day away. The sounds of the television left running could be heard from down the hall. Diana Lewis was on the evening news, bringing viewers up to date on information about yesterday's car crash. Red Wings defenseman Vladimir Konstantinov and Slava Fedosov, along with a team masseur, were all seriously injured in a limousine crash after a celebration of the team's Stanley Cup win. All three were now at Beaumont Hospital, and Konstantinov, a.k.a. Vlad the Impaler, was in a coma. The news from the doctors sounded grim. The limo driver had a suspended license and was cited for driving under the influence. The news cast a pall upon the city, days after Detroit's victory over the Philadelphia Flyers. Inside the bedroom, with the muted voices coming from the other room, Abraham and Eva lay together, murmuring in dialogue. She lay between his legs, her shoulders resting on his chest. They talked about the crash, about Viva's babysitter Tasha, about her own financial woes. Now they'd moved on to the topic of family. Abraham couldn't help himself. He was so curious. He wanted to know everything about her, and all of the Ashners. Why were you raised by your grandparents, not your mom? Abraham toyed with an unruly lock of her hair, spinning it around his fingers. Eva sighed and drew the sheet a little closer around her. My dad was killed in a car accident when I was really young. Then, a couple years later, Irene moved us down to Florida. Abraham wondered, why was that? She wanted us away from their influence, my grandparents. I think she had this notion of taking charge of her family, and my grandfather, well, his business always had a way of putting him in the driver's seat. Wasn't he retired by that point? Sure, but there's always been this notion that maybe he's not really out. Like maybe there's still some dealings going on. What do I know? I stay out of it. She closed her eyes, rolling her shoulder blades against Abraham's pectoral muscles. Does it bother you? The gangster stuff? Huh, no, I don't care about that. But my mother definitely felt we needed to be far away from it. Eva heard the unmistakable voice of Mel Farr, superstar, as the local news cut to a car commercial in the other room. Abraham watched as more of the outside light slipped out of the skies and the room shifted into deeper dusk. Maybe after your dad died, she figured her kids were more at risk. Maybe. Anyway, we went to Florida. I guess she didn't tell anyone about it. We were living in one dumpy apartment after another down near Tampa, and she told nobody where we were. Abraham sneezed, turning aside. Excuse me. What did she do for work? He stretched to his left to grab a tissue from the nightstand. Waited tables at this Polynesian place. Pele something. We called it the Puka Pele, Lena and me, because it had these nasty puka shell curtains. A long-buried memory surfaced of being 11 years old, doing homework at the bamboo-covered bar, while the waitresses rolled silverware and gossiped. So, what happened? Eva sat up a little straighter. Abraham swept his hands over her shoulders, gently massaging. It was crazy. I remember coming home from school for summer break. She remembered the drive to Florida as though it happened last week. There was an air of excitement, of distraction in the air, as if she and her sister were being kidnapped or going to a surprise party. It was all a big hush-hush secret. The car was soon littered with crumpled paper bags from Burger Chef. Lena, who was sullen and withdrawn that year, was totally brought round by the excitement of a trip. Of course, the girls merely thought they were taking a spontaneous vacation. They had no idea what Irene planned. It was Friday, June 8th of 1979, and a warm summer breeze blew through the open windows. Irene nervously gulped a strawberry milkshake as she motored south on the I-75. That was the summer of the big oil crisis. Irene waited an hour in line for gas at 9 Mile and Telegraph before the sisters walked home from school. She wore a short-sleeve orange t-shirt and brown corduroys, and once the sun began to set on their drive, she pushed her big amber sunglasses on top of her head like Gloria Steinem. For 2 solid days, she drove through darkness and sun and rain to get as south of Detroit as fast as possible. They rented a cheap motel room in central Ohio the first night, and the next day made their way into the South, the clear signs of Kentucky bluegrass and deep rolling hills signaling that they were a full state closer to their destination. The next night, they rented a room in a motor inn south of Atlanta, waking at dawn to fresh roasted pecan rolls. They arrived in the Sunshine State on a Sunday and were welcomed with a bounty of fresh citrus at the first rest stop. Lena was curled up in the back seat during the ride, reading The Great Gilly Hopkins. Eva and Irene played the license plate game up front. Each stop for gas found shorter and shorter lines, but still gave them several minutes' wait to get out and stretch. There was a sense of change, a new precipice of possibility that even the clueless daughters could sense. The 70s were coming to an end. J.R. Ewing just got shot. Jimmy Carter was in his final summer as the president, and whenever the girls flipped through the radio and stumbled on Blondie's Heart of Glass, they cranked the stereo and loudly shouted along, even though neither Lena nor Eva could exactly make out the words. Irene would look over at her daughters and see how fast they were growing, how much they were figuring out. This trip couldn't have come at a more fortuitous time. They stayed at a hotel for the first week they were in Tampa, and Irene found a job stocking shelves at a hardware store. She applied for the waitressing gig a couple blocks away from the beach in Clearwater after the hardware store manager cornered her in the storage room on her 3rd night on the job. The restaurant gave her the flexibility to work around the girls' school schedule, plus ready cash. That next month, they stayed in an extra bedroom of the restaurant's weekday hostess. The three moved around a lot while they were in Florida, often staying with different girlfriends, boyfriends. Once, a drag queen named Maud gave them a sofa bed to sleep on for 6 nights when Irene was dead broke. That was Christmas time, their first year. 2 years later, we were staying in this apartment on Indian Head. It belonged to some guy that my mom went on like 3 dates with. He'd already moved out but couldn't get out of his lease, so he let us stay in it for a month. He moved out, and we moved in. Lena and I slept in the bedroom, and my mom slept on the hide-a-bed. We had no money, and my mom worked every damn night at that Hawaiian restaurant. Sometimes the only food we had was the leftovers she brought home. Stuff customers sent back, you know. It was summertime. We'd been out of school about a week. Mostly we'd go to the pool, but that day the pool was being cleaned. We were bored. I remember I was wearing my danskin leotard and black leg warmers and dancing around the apartment, goofing off. I thought I was Stevie Nicks or something. Lena was watching TV on the couch. It was afternoon. Someone knocked at the door and I went to answer it. It was Poppy and Rushmore. Your grandfather's driver? I've seen that guy bring him to our appointments. Yeah, Rushmore. His real name is Russ Kovich or something, but Lena and I immediately started calling him Rushmore because he's such a massive guy. Poppy had hired him a few months before, I guess, and they drove down in his Cadillac. Showed up totally out of the blue. Had you seen your grandfather since you left Detroit? Not at all. We called Poppy and BB once apiece on their birthday or something. Clearly my mother did not want them to know where we were because we always called from someone else's place or payphone or someplace we were getting ready to move out. How did he find you? Ha! He hired a private investigator. At least that's what Lena later told me. So you left with them, without checking with your mom? Well, see, Poppy told us that BB was sick, which is totally true. She'd had a stroke about a month before. He said our mother agreed to let us come back to Michigan with him and that we needed to leave immediately and she'd follow us later. I heard he left a check for her. Remember, I was only a kid. What do I know? Was it true about the money? Pretty sure. Still, I did not see my mom for over a year. We would call her once a week and she'd call us maybe once a month. It was stupid. She came up finally right before school started and wanted us to return to Florida with her. You didn't want to live with her anymore? I don't know. Maybe? She came for a visit and said we could come home with her, but she had no plan. Honestly, I didn't care. I would have gone back, but Lena didn't want to, I guess. Why not? Probably because of BB, Eva snorted. Why is that? Those two. I swear they were like twins, a couple little bitches. Them and their stupid art books and matching outfits. No joke. They were practically a coven, those two. I hated the way they talked to each other. Like I didn't exist. Thank God for Poppy. So Lena wanted to stay for your grandmother? Yeah. We got sucked right into their lives. And BB really wasn't well. She was very weak when we first came home from the stroke. Then she would get sick all the time. Pneumonia, whatever. She would get sicker and sicker every year and more dependent on Lena. Lena did everything for that woman. I swear that's why she became a nurse. It all started with that. So you and Lena continued to live with Poppy all the way through high school? No. They sent me away to boarding school. She shook her head, gave a little snort. Where was that? Near Lake Tahoe. I went to this very fancy school for the arts. All-girls school, you know. She laughed. Sent me as far away as they could. You didn't enjoy it there? No, the school was great. I just felt it was unfair. They sent me away and Lena got to stay. I'm not jealous, but my grandmother did not like me, and she made sure she kept the granddaughter she wanted at home with her, and the one she didn't, sent out of state. Oh, I'm sure your grandma liked you. No, she did not. Maybe she loved me, but she always acted embarrassed by me. I was too loud or something. I don't care. I didn't really like her either. And Poppy more than made up for how she treated me. You really love him, don't you? Has he ever told you, about his past? She shook her head. Nope. I mean, he told me stories about my dad, stories from when he was a boy. He told me about his parents. I guess they died when Poppy was pretty young. He has this great story about traveling across the country during the Depression, like train hopping and stuff. Sometimes he'll tell a funny story about people he used to know. They always have these weird nicknames, like, in Goodfellas, how they say Jimmy 2 times or whatever. But he doesn't tell me who those people are. Little, anecdotes. There's some family out east somewhere. I know he gets letters from someone and then he tells me things they wrote about, but I've never met them. Maybe they're cousins. So you went to boarding school. Then what? So the school was kind of a prep school, for artists and dancers and musicians. After school, I came home for the summer, but the next year I moved to New York. What did you do there? Took ballet classes with the New York Conservatory. I was there for 3 seasons. Tried to get into Joffrey, then I came back here. She sighed. Abraham shifted, moving Eva off his right hip. So this is a little delicate, but were you and your brother-in-law in love? She felt a chill and pulled his arm tighter around her. Oh no, it was nothing like that. I never thought about him in that way, and I'm certain he didn't think of me that way either. We just, spent time together. It just happened. I feel really bad about it. But you have your daughter because of him. I do, and I'm really happy being a mom. The thing is, I wasn't planning to have kids. That's been the hardest thing. My sister tried and tried for years to get pregnant, and not only do I succeed, but with her husband, and literally without trying. Okay, enough questions. She playfully stroked his thigh. I have 1 more hour before I have to get home to relieve the babysitter. Abraham stood up and made a beeline into the bathroom, his tight ass making Eva smile. When he returned, he crouched at the foot of the bed and yanked Eva toward him. He began to nuzzle her calf muscles, her knees, her thighs, and continued. Eva began secretly smoking while living with Poppy and Beatrice. She'd sometimes walk in on Lena and her grandmother sitting together at the kitchen table, playing mahjong. Crimson smears on the china cups from Beatrice's lipstick. Hot, sugary coffee. Toast with marmalade. Matching fucking Japanese kimonos. They would be talking conspiratorially about art and other things. Whenever Eva tried to join in their conversations, Beatrice insisted, "You're not interested in this, honey. These are our special sessions," and urged her to find something else to do. "Stupid sessions," Eva would mutter with a sniff, stomping up the hallway to her bedroom. She would find her pack of smokes hidden in her dresser and crack open the window facing the side yard. Tapping the ashes into an empty pop can, Eva plotted whatever revenge she could imagine at 13. She wished that she didn't care that they never included her. Who gave a shit about their stupid paintings anyway? She cranked up the music and danced around the room she shared with her sister, a pre-teen dervish with feathery 80s hair. She threw a pouting fit that lasted several weeks when they told her she was going to boarding school out of state. Poppy's pleas that this was in her best interest fell upon deaf ears. But a few months after she arrived in California, she began to thrive. She was athletic, competitive, and well-liked. Under the tutelage of a strict guidance counselor, a tough middle-aged woman who acted as a foster mom for many out-of-state students, Eva straightened her shit out. She found affirmation, validation at school. Eva loved to groom the horses after class, and each semester, her dance skills and grades grew exponentially. She made good friends, women she still kept in touch with. She returned to Detroit after graduation and basically sat around the house, watching television during the late afternoons and hitting the dance clubs downtown at night. Finally, Lena convinced her sister to enroll in Wayne State University's dance and arts program. She spent a year at WSU before moving to New York City to pursue ballet. In New York, she rented a tiny closet of an apartment, which Poppy paid for. She never bought any furniture. She slept on a Murphy bed and ate her meals standing up at the kitchen counter. She lived on strawberries, grilled chicken, and hot water with lemon. Eva was a good dancer, but not great. Her body was more naturally rounded for her to achieve a dancer's optimum weight and grace. She moved more with her hips, and she partied a bit as well. She dated the drummer of an obscure art house rock band, smoked weed on weekends, and drank the occasional beer. She applied 3 times to the Joffrey Ballet and never made the cut. 15 months later, Eva flew back to Detroit. In late '94, Poppy bought her the townhouse, signed for all her furniture too. White plush furniture, lots of glass tabletops, ornate vases, and artwork. Now half of her furniture had padding wrapped around it to protect the baby. Eva's pregnancy was downright anticlimactic, following her abrupt announcement after Ben's funeral and the cold shoulder she got for months from the whole family. Even Carmen once tossed a wash rag at her when she stopped by that New Year's. But slowly, everyone began to ease up as she approached the end of her second trimester. She experienced no terrific morning sickness, no major discomfort. Rather, sadness, and grief as the family took their time defrosting. She woke early on May 15th with light cramping, followed by 3 sustained urinations, signaling that her water had broken. She called Carmen, who woke Poppy, who rang Lena. Lena picked up Poppy and they drove to meet Eva at the hospital. Eva took a cab at dawn. That morning, she felt the most independent she ever had. She experienced roughly 6 hours of contractions, followed by 19 minutes of hard labor, and out slid baby Viva Ashner. Viva was healthy, 7 pounds, 6 ounces. Lena was the only family member inside the delivery room with her younger sister when her niece was born. Eva had long known that her family's expectations of her were pretty low. It was an uncomfortable feeling, but she never spoke about it. She understood that she just needed to accept what others thought and felt about her, until she could prove them all wrong, of course.